Nancy, I'm just to explain to everyone else, because so if they get on after and they want to watch the recording.
Okay.
So I think I did realize this because I log into Zoom and I download these. So these are recordings that are done for the class.
Okay.
So maybe these are not done for the class. Or maybe those are the ones that are happening right now. I think those are probably happening right now. But anyway, those are not the ones that I would expect you to do. I should go back and show you. I am not expecting you to, on the cloud recordings, if you can see these, I'm assuming, Nancy, that you can see these same things.
Yeah.
So it's showing these cloud recordings here. And if you click on these, then it shows the files. And these are really small because I stopped the recording early on that. And then you could, well, does it go back to where it was? So it looks like this is the one that I did. I did some recording last week, and then you can look at these different versions.
Okay.
And so, but what I do, which I think is easier, is I convert it to YouTube and then put it here.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah, and then here, because I can actually edit this a little bit if I want to.
Okay.
On this one, and I could put music on it if I wanted to.
Okay, well, that makes more sense. Thank you.
Yeah, so there is that. So if that, because I thought maybe what you were talking about was, because sometimes students get into the class, they don't do module 0, and then they just start trying to do module 1, and they don't have access to that unless you've done module 0.
Oh, okay, got it. Well, thank you.
So that's it for today, unless you have anything else you want to ask.
No, I just wanted to see if I could find a way to watch the previous class to see if maybe I missed something important. I could just catch up and
yeah, you can watch that. You can watch that. There is actually not very much there.
Oh, okay.
So, and like here, let's see how long. Yeah, it's only like 6 minutes, 4 minutes actually. So, something else, since you're here, I will show you this. There is a Chrome extension that I use. So if you go to, hopefully it shows this out here, more tools, goes to this extension screen. And then if you go down here to the Open Web Chrome store, you can type in video speed controller. And so it shows, and it shows the one that I like is right here, but a lot of times it does not show that. And if you click on more extensions, and I'm recording this now so you can come back and watch this. So you may have to click on more extensions and then keep scrolling down until you find, because you can see there's tons of them, of these video speed controller things.
Yeah.
So there must be, I think there's some open source code out there that lets people do it, but this is the one that I like, this Egeric.
Okay.
And so, and then I'll show you what it does. So in Chrome, or not in Chrome, but in YouTube, you can come back to playback speed and go to double speed. And then when you watch it, it goes really fast.
Okay. Well, thank you. And one question.
With this one, you can actually crank up the speed to even faster. So and I just show you that because there are lots of videos for this class. Okay. So you may want to just use this little tool to run faster.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Sorry for interrupting you. What were you going to say?
Oh, no. So just to clarify, class is usually for questions, I'm assuming. And mostly it's like the videos that are on the modules, that's where I'm going to be learning the material, and the book that's also with the kit.
Yeah, so the book, let's see, let's just go through this first module just to give an example. So
okay.
So we've got the first module here. And there are some slides that come along with this module. And sometimes I will talk about this. So in the design process, we can, so these are Google Slides, and I may have to download these to get them to, and I do have them downloaded, but this covers what goes on in the book.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Thank you.
So this covers what goes on in the book, and sometimes I will go over these, but one of the things that I wanted to use this specific time for was doing discussions on what people have turned in.
Okay.
So, and then just to see, I don't know if people understand kind of what's happening with what it looks like to other people when they post, but I think they all should look the same. And there should be a way, just like this person, McKenna here. So to see this, you have to download the image, and then we would have to change the viewing
Okay.
to see that. So to see this, so this makes it just a little bit more difficult if people don't post, if people don't post them in the discussion effectively. So there's this one, and it's pretty big. So you have to scroll up to see. Emily Anderton did this, and I think this is fine, but then you can see there's more where people just pasted in. So Brendan's got his pasted in here, a little bit easier to look at and comment on if they're smaller. Where if
Okay.
the people who do them large, it's harder to see and then comment. So, but these are really good the way people have done. I mean, you can see people's different interpretation of what they're doing or kind of what their skill is. And so I'm not really looking so much for skill, but just for concepts that people have done. Because in every one, well, I've only taught this class one semester, but I've taught Photoshop for several semesters and web design. And so on the design part, lots of times people have a lot more skill than other people with their design. And then some people in this, especially for the first few assignments in this class, people can use Photoshop or Illustrator. And so this one, I think, I don't know if Deming did this in Photoshop, but I'm thinking maybe we would have to see. But this looks like, at least part of it looks like it was done in Photoshop.
Okay.
Which is just fine for this class. It was interesting last semester when I taught this, and then as I talked to Virag White, is the professor that came up with the content for this class. And she was saying we need to get people to understand that they have access to the Creative Cloud license. So as a student at Slick, and actually as a student, if you're moving on to the U after this, you have access to the Creative Cloud license, which means you have access to Photoshop and Illustrator and Premiere and InDesign and Acrobat.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And so she said, I want you to emphasize that a little bit more next semester. And so that's what I did in this one.
Oh, nice.
So, and then here's some other ones where people have just, and I think Anthony did this one in Photoshop too. He could have cut those out. I should ask him about that. That's a skimboarder and not a surfer. So, and then there's just these sketches that people have done, which are really good. So, and like I say, some it appears that some people's level of art, or maybe they just haven't taken as much time on the assignment. So
So just for clarification, for this module, I can also use Photoshop. It doesn't have to be like traditional media. Is
it,
that
that's true.
okay?
I mean, because it does, and it may say in the let's see, it may say in the instructions at the top, because it says do's and don'ts. This is the preliminary work.
Okay, because I can't remember, but there was like a do's and don't.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna pop open a new tab here.
Okay.
So this is the assignments, and so here are the do's and don'ts. And so the way that this class works is there's usually a preliminary something, and then it will have a link to the full description of the assignment. And I have had students that haven't clicked over here and look. So just like this one, it says, don't say you couldn't find any printed paper to use,
Yeah.
which is kind of a lame excuse. But if you're using Photoshop, which is totally acceptable, this doesn't really fit that. And so,
Okay.
so it's good that you're here, and I'll put this, and if people listen, then they understand. If not, then they do it the traditional way, which is fine too.
And how would I go about obtaining the license for the Photoshop or Illustrator?
So let's see if it may not be in this module, but in the other one. I want to probably zap me over here pretty quick. Here, let's look at the preliminary work here. Then once again, this is the same. We can, and I have added in so there's a link right here on this assignment. It's on, I have this in 2 assignments. So if it will pull up this page. And it will pull up this page, and it tells you how to get into your, so it says here to navigate. I am actually going to open this. I'll show you. Hold on, I'm gonna do a new share here. So if you click on that, it should open to this page. So you can see this Adobe page here.
Yeah.
And then on the sign in, if you put in your email address, and I am putting in my Slick.
Okay.
And I think because one of the reasons I say I think is because they just switched from, it used to be your Bruin Mail account. And I think you still have your username at bruinmail.slcc.edu.
Okay.
But they're running it through Microsoft instead of Google.
Yeah.
They used to run that through Google.
Okay.
And so it will come up with this, and it says company and school account. And this is where, and it says your user at bruinmail.slcc.edu.
Awesome. Okay.
So for me, this is a different user.
Okay.
And so you can, if this doesn't work, let me know. So then you can hit this, and it will sign you in. It asks you for your password, and then you get into this. Hold on, I have extra steps.
It's always good.
I mean, this is a step that you don't have to do. It just automatically does this for you as a student.
Okay.
And so you may see that little screen pop up, and then it will go away. But once you're in here, then let's see, you just click on Creative Cloud. See if it starts at download. Oh yeah, and then it's So you can click on the apps. They have. So it shows all the apps you can grab.
Okay.
So these are ones that I actually have installed. And then these are other ones that you can get.
Oh, that's
And
so nice.
yeah, it's really cool that it was 3 or 4 years ago, maybe not that.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I realized as an instructor here, this is before I was teaching design classes at Slick, but I realized that they were giving us a Creative Cloud license. I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
That's pretty awesome. I've been wanting to try out Fresco and it's like an opportunity. So that's pretty awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So, yeah, and it's one of the things I try to tell students. Another thing that I don't have a link to this one, but if you go to slcc.edu/office 365, you also have 5 licenses to Microsoft Office through this.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So you can install that, and any public school, I shouldn't say that, because I found out that there's a school district that doesn't offer this, but like a lot of the high school districts, so a lot of the high schools and the elementaries, they also have this same option, so that they all have 5 licenses. So if you go to this class, I mean, if you go here, it's showing my email and stuff, but if you say install Office, it will, and it's downloading this, and I've already got it. So you can install Office from here.
Okay.
So just things that I try to tell the students that they have access to. I'm going to switch back to the other. So remember on these 2 assignments, it's got linked to instructions on how to get it, Adobe Creative Cloud.
Okay. And one last question. I wanted to clarify, you mentioned that with each module there's parts of content from the book. So do I still need to get the kit? And if so, can I just get it at the Taylorsville campus, or does it have to be the South campus?
You mean the book or the?
I know there was something about a kit that I read in the syllabus.
So there is, here, let's look at the syllabus.
Nancy, are you asking about the art kit? Like the
Yeah.
supplies? I actually went to pick it up today at the art materials place in Sugar House that it was recommended, and they're out of the kits.
Oh.
And so he had to like hand assemble it, and it costs a lot more than the $90. So just like fair warning that when you go to get the kit, they're probably not going to have it, and it's going to be more like 120 than the 90.
Okay, thank you.
So
Yeah.
did they charge you the 120 or did they just charge you the 90?
Well, so I had talked to him. They charged me the 120 because they were out of the actual kits, and they were also missing like some of the things, and so he had to like swap some of the supplies out. And so it was 120.
Okay, hold on. I am gonna send a message to Parag to get them to. So that was good to know. Sorry about that, Marie. It was Marie, right? You were the one, or was it Madison that you went over there?
It's Madison,
Oh,
but
sorry.
no, you're okay. No worries.
So sorry about that. And there was one student that went over and they said, "Oh, I've got D. Gardner as the teacher," and they're like, "Oh, we don't have a kit for him." I'm like, "Oh." Student was upset. I'm like, "Sorry about that." And I called. They're like, "Oh, it's all the same." So I've covered everything I want to. Does anyone else have any questions? Nancy, I'm glad you joined and asked all those questions.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me all that information. It really helped me clarify all those questions that I had.
Cool.
So I'll definitely see if maybe I'll call before going and see if they have those kids in stock.
Yeah, and it's just the one in Sugar House. Yeah, just call. And every time I've ever called, they've been really nice. And so,
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone.
all right, thanks.
Thanks, Medicine. Have a nice rest of your evening.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you. Bye bye.
So Madison
Bye.
or Marie, do you have any questions?
I don't.
I
I'm
don't.
good.
Okay,
No, I'm just checking.
so Marie, at some point we're gonna have you give us a little thing about your Amnesty International. That's pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah. It was very interesting.
So yeah, I want to try to set up some art, some like little local art trips to go to different places.
Oh, right on. Yeah. Yeah, this was in Chicago,
Oh,
where I set that up.
cool.
Yeah, I was working with their national group, but yeah.
So were
It's
you living in
very
Chicago
interesting.
then, or did you just do that?
No, I was just organizing from here. I was an international policy advisor for them for several years on their board and just had some adjacency to the art and activism work they wanted to start doing. So just had the opportunity to organize that.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah, and then I cannot remember the name of the artist that you shared, but that
Jenny Holzer.
yeah, she has some cool stuff.
Oh yeah, I love her work.
So
She's very interesting.
some of the stuff I wouldn't call maybe depressing, but eye-opening about.
Yeah, yeah, she's not like a cheerful artist for sure, but she's
That is a good, but the one thing I like about her art is it takes some study.
oh yeah.
You have to look at it from some different angles, and she's done a good job with her photography on getting that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's very like moment in time work that, but then it's kind of universal as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
yeah,
she's
no,
very
it's
interesting.
true. It's one of those things, really thought-provoking
Yeah.
art. Where I mean, and this is just my own perspective, but I live in America and we're so sheltered from what's going on in the rest of the world, or a lot of times we forget what's happened in the past,
Yeah.
which is just so crazy. So
Yeah,
it's gone on.
I mean, we do that at our own peril, I think. So
Yeah, but there's the other problem is, as people in the United States, we need to realize that there's this kind of craziness still going on all around the world.
Yeah.
And that we can't really turn a blind eye to that.
yeah, I mean, I think there's plenty going on here in the country to take up all of our time without even
Yeah, that is true.
doing the international work we've got.
Yeah, no,
going on here.
No, that's true too, because I mean we have homelessness that's going on here that.
Yeah, we have increased radicalization in some pretty interesting ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the homeless problem to me is just kind of depressing, because one, I feel like I can't do a whole lot, but then I realize that there are cities in the United States that are doing a lot better than we are here.
Yeah, and it's hard. I don't think a city can really get their arms around it unless they do a holistic approach. And so, like, I mean, I think 3 or 4 years ago, there were articles in the paper about how Salt Lake had solved homelessness. And like, I think it's pretty apparent that we didn't when you just leave your house now.
Yeah.
So Yeah, there's a local group I work with called Open Air Shelter that does a lot of on the ground work with homeless communities. That groups like that give me some hope about.
Yeah, no, but there, I mean, I do feel hopeful after I hear things like, I don't know if you've heard Malcolm Gladwell's, because he had a couple of his podcasts about that.
Oh yeah, I
And
haven't
so
heard it.
it's been a couple of years, but some of it is really depressing because he's talking about, he's like, it depends on how you die in this country to how much money they will put towards what happened. Because like with 9/11 in New York, they've spent so much money on that whole plaza and everything. And he's like, then there's these people, he's like, then we lose that many homeless people every year, but we're not putting the same kind of money and energy into trying to help those people.
Yeah, they're not a tax base, so there's less of an incentive.
Still.
Just to be crass about it.
I know.
So,
I know. That's why we need to have people need to be discussing this more often, because just like you're saying, like I saw this tweet that said, because there's a show on Netflix, and this somebody tweeted about it and just said, it's so amazing how we punish the poor in the United States
we
for
really
not having
do.
money.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of like systemic requirements in place by people who've never experienced poverty and don't understand the difficulty of like climbing out of it. It's much more exhausting to be poor than to have any amount of wealth. Like in ways that I think people with money don't ever understand.
Yeah, it's like
You
there's
make a choice to learn.
yeah, so I have a friend he's on disability, and he can't, if he makes more than he will get on disability, they take away his disability. They like
Yeah.
fine him for making more. Like if he makes more than his disability, they like ask him for it back.
And he can't have more than $2,000 in savings, which is insane.
Yeah, which
In
is crazy.
what
How is
other
he-
arena would we do that?
Yeah, so how is he going to get out? And then
Yeah,
I was
he's not.
talking to him about it, and I mean he doesn't really have anything. He's got problems with his car, and we're trying to help him. You know, some of us in the neighborhood are trying to help him get his car fixed and things like that. But he, like, if he goes above and starts losing his disability, then he loses insurance too. And looking at what he would have to make over $100,000 a year to get the same kind of insurance, and there's a huge gap between basically the $25,000 a year he's getting for disability and the $100,000 a year he would have to make to replace his insurance.
Yeah, it's wild. Hopefully there's someone that could help him with like the marketplace options, because I know there are options for people making that much and less.
Yeah, that's true. There are marketplace options now.
But it's exhausting, and when you're disabled, I mean, just a lot of times being alive is exhausting.
Yeah. But we still need to be talking about it because we can all do something.
Yeah, there's always little things.
So, and it's cool that it's cool that people like you have figured out a better way to get involved. Unlike me, who I'm just trying to survive.
I'm childless, so I mean, I'll acknowledge that privilege. I don't have children, so it's a lot easier for me. I mean, we have children, my partner's son in this summer, but yeah, it's much easier for me.
Yeah, no, because I have 4 children, and 2 of them
Yeah.
are out on their own, providing for themselves now, and I'm surprised at how much easier it is for me to save money.
I'm sure. I can imagine.
So it's just like, I'm like, so my one son went to college last semester out of state, and so I was able to take him off of my insurance, and my insurance, this is just my car insurance. It's like half what it was.
Oh wow.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So, and then Madison's just listening, going,
Yeah. I know.
"This is an art class." No, it's like-
Okay, it's been an interesting conversation. I just didn't have anything to add, so.
So,
Turned
but,
into a
I mean,
sociology class.
my hope is that through art, if because I really think that art can really help people out.
Absolutely.
And so, as not just as like, a starving artist stereotype, but people can make a living doing art. And so I'm hoping that I do a little bit to inspire people to try to get into art as a career.
Yeah. And I think even like, I think like a critical part of being in the art world is expanding the definition of art and one, and not providing so many like false barriers to access. There's like a million ways to create something. And that's why I work in art and activism, because I feel like it's a really critical access point, especially for people who have jobs and community work that grind on them. Like if you don't have those release points that are like things like art can provide, you burn out. So I think it's a critical part of every ecosystem.
It's so true. But it's interesting because I have a brother who was physically really talented. I mean, like he was the fastest runner in his high school. He was just the fastest. And then, I mean, he could do backflips and the whole thing. So he was really good at sports, but he was so bad at the academics.
Yeah.
And so he just barely graduated from high school, and he's never really had that much of a steady job. But he is such a good artist too.
Oh, wow.
He just can see things, and when he paints, he's done sculpture, and his problem was he just really never had anyone to market his skills.
Yeah.
And so, because that's one of the things that I think is critical for artists is they need to find someone who can help market what they do.
Oh yeah, you're not like a one person shop, especially as an artist. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you have like a stereotypical artist mind, I don't think you're equipped to market and all of that. Yeah, and I think also, helping people understand that I mean, I've at times owned art studios, and it really burnt me out. So I prefer to do art on my own time. So yeah, it doesn't always have to be a capitalistic endeavor, but I admire the people that can really keep that up, because that definitely turned out not to be what was in the cards for me. I didn't want to do it at all.
Well, I mean, with your experience and and I don't have a full grasp of what your like studio experiences and things, but just like my brother, he does not and I'm using my brother's as an example, is he does not have the mindset for the business side.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
think very few artists do. I think you, like a lot of artists, luck into, they have adjacency to people who are willing to assist them with the business end, or they just attend one market where they are able to like be accidentally mentored by another artist or things like that. Yeah, it's a lot of it is, I think to me, as like, as an instructor for you and as for other people who have access in the art world, is to create those avenues of access, because it can be so difficult to even know where to start.
no, it's true.
Yeah.
Because a couple of the artists, well, there's one artist that I know who's really successful. So he is in his 60s now, and really I think what made him successful was his wife is just good at it, is good at the marketing.
Yeah.
And so she's the one that kind of handles the whole thing. And so
Oh, so you have frozen.
college. And I think for him, just being so he went through the academic. Did I just lose everybody?
You froze for a second there.
Yeah. So this, through the academic side, he's been able to keep contact with lots of other people and be connected to do that through academics. And so I think academics is one way that if people want to go in and teach, or they're like me, and I'm not, like I do ceramics and I'm really on the digital side more so than the actual physical side.
Which is still art.
It's like you're saying, there's so many ways that people can be creative.
Yeah.
There's a ways I am in creative in business where other people just don't see the situations the same way I do.
Absolutely. I think like that's like one of the most critical parts of art and activism for me is like expanding the idea of like that's why we called it the People's Gallery in Amnesty International, because they wanted to bring in some big name artists and stuff, and I said no, that just creates an atmosphere of big A artists and then lowercase a artists, and people are intimidated because about 10 years old teachers start telling you your art is bad and then you stop making it. But like Picasso drew a butt and made $50,000 off of it. He didn't, but it's been sold for that. So like, it's all subjective, and just do
Right.
it.
But there's one of the things that I think, talking about like kind of tying this in with the homeless thing, is too often we have put we want what in especially in the United States and other places, they've put a huge value on being able to produce a ton of stuff.
Yep.
Where it's not where I mean, I really like the Star Trek model where they're just trying to make themselves better.
Yeah.
And I wish so much that there was a way that we could get more resources to the people like my brother who's never going to produce, especially like on the level that Picasso did. Picasso was just some kind of workaholic type of a guy.
Yeah.
Because he produced so much stuff. But
He did. Yeah.
But there's so many of us, just like I probably would have been a potter had I not been worried about. My dad had been an artist and never really made very much money. But
Yeah.
I found out later it was just his attitude towards people.
Oh.
He did not make money.
That's key.
So,
Yeah.
but he was a good artist. Well, he's still an artist. He hasn't died yet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think there's no direct correlation between sellability and creation, and like in this like mode of capitalistic, we're just raised in this mode of capitalism in which we think it has to be purchasable basically. But I just
Right.
say, just make it. And I mean, like you're saying with like homeless folks, I think poor people are the most creative because they have to be. And
Well,
not necessarily artistically, but in life, and that expands the way that you can think about things.
I was listening to this podcast called My First Million,
Oh,
and so there's these guys, and they're rich. I mean, they've got millions of dollars, and they've
yeah.
got podcasts they're talking about. And one guy pointed out something. He's like, there's a ton of power in being like homeless and being like super wealthy. He's like, because like the homeless people, like if you go up and talk to a homeless person, if they realize this, they're like, you can't take anything from me because I don't have anything.
Yeah,
And like
absolutely.
a really rich person is like, there's nothing you can do to affect me.
Yeah.
And so an interesting concept there. He's like, all of us that are in between that have stuff that we're afraid can get taken away. He's like, we have more fear than those two. But you're right about people being, if I was homeless, I would have to be really creative.
Yeah, I mean, even just the working poor, I think, end up having to be extremely creative, like just with their paycheck. And from there on, in their home, like making things last longer amounts of time and making something out of something that wasn't intended to be that function for that need in their home. So I find the artistic communities that I've enjoyed the most have tended to be in warehouses and nowhere parts of the town,
Right. Yeah, and we don't, at least not yet, we don't value the creativity that they've got.
No. Or we steal their ideas, honestly. And they don't have any recompense for, like, they don't have any like IP claims. You're poor.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's complicated.
Well, hopefully we can continue to keep having conversations like this and getting people motivated to try to do something else.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
cool. I am so glad to have you in class just because of the conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So hopefully we stay connected after the class is over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can give me this new perspective. This is like I think I mentioned this. This is one of the things I love about, and I'm not going to even say teaching, that I love about being involved with academics, is because I get access to people that are not in my neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I just love the new perspectives that I get from people.
Yeah, I love that about Slick, that it's a much more of a mixture of people. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Cool. Well, thank you. I will be here again next week.
Okay, sounds good.
And you're not required to join. And so
Yeah, it's interesting to just like plug it's kind of like makes me have to sit down and do the work. So it's kind of like the trick to get me to sit down and do the homework and all that if I hadn't been able to pay attention to it at another time of the week. So
oh, cool.
yeah.
So I will be here every week to answer questions or anything like that.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
All right, have a good night.
You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.